sip of water. That's a bad idea. Hello, it's me. It's working just fine. My name is Naomi Calhoun. I am the host of the Survivor New York recap podcast for the Live Reality Games podcast network. Make sure, first and foremost, to subscribe to the Live Reality Games YouTube channel. We're looking to get that custom URL, and it takes about 100 subscribers. So please, we don't post that much. Don't worry. Just subscribe to us. Anyways, hi, I'm here with, first of all, Chris Lord, the founder and host of Survivor New York. We're here to talk about the finale with Mark. Chris, what's going on?
A lot of fun stuff. I'm actually in the process of working on season 4 right now, editing all the episodes. So I'm really excited to pump that out and show everybody what the next season's about. But I'm really excited to kind of finish out the last few podcasts with you.
I am too, and I'm super excited for season 4, if only because if you thought this season was crazy, it's crazier. Season 4 is crazier. That's all I can say without giving too much away. And we have with us very special guest, very own Jordan Seeds baby Kalish from the RHAP network. Jordan, how are the seeds?
Seeds are great. I'm doing great, and it was really nice having a season of Survivor to watch while I am still home all the time in quarantine, essentially, and teaching from home. As I was just telling Chris, teaching phys ed from home, which is not easy to do. So it was really nice having a Survivor season to watch. This was a lot of fun, and I can attest to the fact that season 4, as someone who worked on the show as a crew member, is really crazy, and it's definitely going to be worth watching as well.
That's right. So mark your calendar. Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Mark your calendars.
Mark your calendars. YouTube.com/C/Survivor New York. And last but not least, our very special guest, the person we are diving in deep with. It's Mark. It's hot Mark. Look, everybody, he showed up finally. Mark, how are you?
I am good. Just living my best quarantine life. I kind of, like everyone does on January 1st, tries to do a, revamp fitness life. So that's my new life right now.
Oh, get swole and jacked for the next Survivor game. We see you.
Oh, yeah, that would be. Maybe I'll win immunities.
Well, I mean, first of all, you literally have tied for the Survivor New York record. And I'll just say nobody's broken it on season 4. That's 3 immunity wins post-merge and also 1 individual immunity win in the pre-merge. That's 4 total. And you're tied with Jenny from season 1. Shout out to Jenny. That's pretty darn good.
I was such a fan of Jenny too. But yeah, it was pretty fun. I was rewatching and I didn't even know that I needed it. Maybe the second to last one. I didn't even know people were saying my name until I watched it. I was like, oh God, I'm glad I won that.
Yeah, that was a crazy one. Didn't expect that at all. So Chris, start us off. What are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, I'd like to start off with, so how did we get to this point, Mark? So can you talk to us about the story about how you found out about Survivor New York, the auditioning process, kind of finding out that you weren't casted, and then that last minute you are going to be playing, you having to rush up here. Give me the whole lowdown about that.
Okay. So I went on Tinder one day and I was swiping and I saw this guy who was really into Survivor, and he was like, do you want to go to this? It was like a viewing put on by Andrea.
Yeah, Survivor Fan Forum. Shout out to them.
Yes.
So really many of us are there in the audience, and we have no idea who each other are. It's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously it was Louis. So we went to that, kind of bonded over it, and then we talked about. He told me about Live Reality Games, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty fun. And then he said I was applying to Survivor New York, and he said I should too, and we should maybe apply together. So we did, but I don't think we got casted initially because we really didn't know each other. It wasn't the biggest bond you could put on, Survivor New York, like Emily and Susan. So, so that, I think it was maybe the day before we found out someone dropped out. So Chris asked us to play. So we quickly texted each other, see if we could like pack up that day and drive up to upstate that night. So it was really hectic. And then on the road there, it just started pouring. Like even in like weather in Florida, it's crazy, hurricanes. We could not see like 2 feet in front of us driving up to see you guys. It was really crazy. So that's how we got there. We were the last ones to arrive too. So like everyone bonded. We were the alternate pair, and we were the last to show up. So we had no expectations to getting this far.
The last to show up, but also the last to leave. So that's pretty impressive. I didn't know that story going in.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I will say that the pair that you guys replaced was a pair of brothers. So you're right in that we essentially had a group that was a little bit closer to each other, knew each other much better. But no offense to those brothers, maybe they'll play one day, but I'm glad we have you guys.
Yeah, it would have been such a different game if we weren't there, you think?
I think so.
Yeah, especially like, considering those guys were they seem really nice, but like you guys really brought sort of the energy and the levity to this season. I think it's a really different sort of change. The butterfly effect. Anyways, it's a great story of the Tinder meeting is so funny to me. And right off the bat, I just wanted to ask, because obviously Chris and I have been basically sitting on this knowledge for 2 years, and Mark as well. Jordan, Kalish, just getting to watch this. You were on season 4's production, but you didn't really know anything about season 3. I think except how Anessa did, right?
Well, to be fair, I do go out a lot with you and Anessa and various people on the cast. So I feel like I did know more than just how Anessa did. I knew who won the season. I knew something about I'm pretty sure I knew that Mark was at least like final 4 or 5. I don't know if I knew his actual placement, but I feel like that is something that came out in conversation once. But yeah, I didn't know the specifics of how the votes came together. And I've always felt with Survivor, even if you know the whole boot list, you could still enjoy the season. Even if you know the winner, you could still enjoy the season, because it's about the ride. It's about how the votes come together, how the story unfolds, and how everyone gets there. So I still really enjoyed it. And I knew nothing about the pre-merge, except for the fact that I did know that Mark and Louie, you both were going to make the merge, and I did know that obviously Gary was going to make it, and that Anessa and her brother Eddie were both going to make it. Besides that, I really didn't know much. I didn't know what the twists were, what the swaps were, who had idols, all that kind of stuff. So I did really enjoy seeing the other pieces of the puzzle that I didn't know come together.
Yeah, and I think a testament to this is that I was there, I filmed this, Chris edited this, and we were still surprised every week. And so it's when you don't get to see you don't have eyes on everything. So a conversation you didn't film is entertaining. And that's really so much fun. It's been great to live it back. And so Jordan, do you have a favorite like shocking moment in the season? Is there something that you were like totally surprised to see happen? That you didn't expect?
I hadn't heard anything about the merge twist, the double vote off at the merge, especially the fact that 2 idols were going to get played. I'm surprised that story just never came out in conversation when I was there. So that was obviously, I think, one of the signature moments of the season. It's really a twist that they've never actually done, at least on American Survivor before. So it was new to me to see something like that. And as someone who's seen each episode of Survivor multiple times, it's hard for me to find something that's new on any season of Survivor. So that was really cool. I thought that we'll get to the final 4. There's when we get there, I have actually some questions that I want to ask, but I really think it was that merge episode, the twist at that episode, in that episode where 2 people went home who were the 3rd and 4th highest vote getters, which is pretty crazy. I think that was something that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, especially to watch like 2 simultaneous plans trying to do the same exact thing, both successfully and technically failing. Really fun. So we're going to start at the beginning. Mark, at the very beginning, who did you want to work with on Yellow? Because we see you doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. You're voting for Emily. You're talking about maybe I'll vote out Caleb. But so tell me about before you even lose the challenge, who you were liking aligning with, who was appealing to you as an alliance member.
So I think early on, I think Pete, Sarah, and Charles and Eddie were like the four that I was like, these feel good. I like them. They talk to me. We have a good bond, and I think we could go far together if we make it to merge. So yeah, I felt good about them. Other people weren't as talkative, but still, there was no one who gave off like maybe Caleb, but like he wasn't like the most talkative to me at least. So I think he would be like the first one I would have voted off.
Mm.
But Serena went, but I think it was just a name that everyone was going to go on just because she lost a bunch. And I didn't want to vote her out first. I liked her.
So Mark, that first vote was a 6-3-1 vote where Serena obviously had 6. She went home. Caleb had 3. You were the one vote for Emily. So I don't remember. I watched this episode as it was airing on YouTube. So it was a long time ago at this point. I don't remember if you had explained why you cast a vote for Emily here. But did you? Was it sort of a hinky vote, or was it like a potentially part of like a vote split or something? How did that happen? Where you were the only one who voted for Emily?
It was literally the first vote, and I was like, if I get voted off, I want to like do something. So Emily was paranoid the entire first challenge, and since we lost, so she thought she was going. So in my brain, I was like, someone's paranoid. I'm gonna throw a vote on her, and then after, I'm gonna go talk to her and be like, hey, I'm so sorry, you got to vote. Let's work together. Like, let's make sure that we have numbers so you stay,
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like I wanted to get closer to her in a devious way, I guess.
So did she ever find out that you were the one who cast that vote for her?
Yeah, I explained it to her. I think it was just when we met up in New York City. I don't know if I told her like while we were on set.
You never confessed to it in the game, as far as we know, which is very funny. I don't think I even knew you voted for Emily until I was watching the footage back.
Oh, really?
Why the hell did Mark vote for Emily? Yeah.
Mark, do you think that it worked for you though? Do you think that Emily was like on your side through the rest of the time you had with her?
Yeah, I do. I think even in the edit, she still felt close to me until she went home, and throughout the whole thing, I think I got close to her as well, as someone I wanted to work with to the end, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think you also do something interesting, which is you sort of say, in case there's a tie, I don't want to go home or I don't want to go to Rocks. So that's a scenario where it's 5-5, and rather than have it be 5-5, you throw your vote, so it's 5-4, and then someone definitely.
Yeah, you're right. That's the main reason I did it. Yeah, so I didn't want to go to Rocks on the first vote. So I initially just threw a vote in case it was 5-5, and I thought of an extra plan of, maybe she's the one who's scared. Let me throw it on her.
Were you anticipating that Emily and Huang would vote in the minority there for Caleb instead of Sabrina? Like, did you see those three as potentially as a triple?
Not really. I think I heard that the girls wanted to stay tight and have like a girls' alliance, which I'm fine with. So I was like, yeah, that's fine with me. But I still think I had, Sarah and other girls that wanted to work with me. So I felt pretty okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, Chris, what do you want to talk about with this pre-swap?
So let's see. You win immunity. Did you plan to win that immunity? I'm just curious. Like, did you really, really try? Because I feel like that immunity challenge was such a crapshoot. Really, just throwing a ball the closest as you can. Like, it really could have been anybody. Were you surprised that you won?
Not really, because if I knew I was going to win one thing, it was going to be aim. I usually have good aim at stuff, so I was like, I'm going to throw a ball close to a pin. I can win this. So I thought I could win it, and I wanted to win it just because I think. Do we know that we were going to go watch their tribal?
I think we do. I think you did know the reward, the idea being that you were going to go watch their tribal.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
remember
I
if you knew that you were going to give someone immunity.
No, you
Yeah,
didn't know
I
that.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
But so I
Yeah.
wanted to like get information and to see, how that tribe was really working, and if Louis was safe, if I could make, like bring back information and see like who I'm working with, and then
Right.
who their loved one is working with on the other side, and kind of work with that person.
And,
Yeah.
and Mark, you sort of did work with like some of the Purple Tribe people after the merge. Is there any information that you learned at that tribal council that maybe helped you, that gave you the information to go to certain people on the Purple Tribe once you swapped and once you merged and say, oh, I might want to work with this person?
Definitely Inessa. I think I was working with Eddie, so I knew they're obviously going to work together. And then I saw Inessa and Louis whispering, so it was a perfect like foursome who can like go into merge and really do some stuff. So that's mainly what I was looking at, and I wanted, yeah, I don't know, yeah, sorry, lost my train.
It's okay. Did you think about Susan at all? Because this is so what I think is interesting is you vote for Sanchea to have immunity. You don't worry about Louis. So you give this confessional. It's in our just out now on our YouTube channel, the all voting confessionals episode, including Mark voting for Sanchea. You don't even list Louis as someone who you think is going home. You think Sanchea, Sandy, or Susan are in trouble.
Okay.
And you decide to vote for Sanchea, which I think is a very interesting choice and not a bad one at all. But you're wrong.
Yeah. Right. Looking back, watching the episode on how Avanti did in the challenge, I should have, really paid more attention. But I was so scared of sitting out myself because I knew I was going to be bad in that like walking challenge. So I was like, I'm not paying attention to the challenge. I just want to like chill because I get really stressed out.
I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I think if you had saved Avanti, the Purple Tribe would have been pissed at you. It's a 9-1 vote.
I would have loved to know like the dynamic, like if Avanti would have been saved, like what would have happened. I mean, Sandy goes home, but that would have changed, I think, the entire game.
It would for me too, because as soon as the merge happened, I did not want to get wet and look for an immunity idol. Like I really did not want to go out there, so I didn't. And then all of a sudden, Sandy was like, "Caleb went home. Do you want his poncho?" And I was like, "Okay." So like put it on, and then I start wandering around a little bit, and you find the idol, and I'm like, I am so glad I did not save Avanti.
That is one of the most interesting stories, I have to say, because I did not know that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, thank you.
Chris, that was an interesting twist too that I actually didn't think of before when you were asking me about like some of those signature moments of the game. I feel like in like the middle seasons of Survivor, they did things where like a representative from a tribe would get to go to tribal council and either give an idol or give not an idol, but give safety. But this was almost like they got to give a super powered idol, like a Tyler Perry idol that works after the votes are played, which Survivor hasn't done before. And I think this was interesting because it's sort of, I think, almost plays into. I mean, did the people at that tribal council on the Purple Tribe know that an idol that works after the votes are cast was going to be in play there?
So they did know. So I told them so we were done with the questions, and I said, so Mark's job now is to vote for one of you to receive safety. We're going to read the votes first, and then we'll read Mark's vote. If Mark's person got the most votes, it would work as an idol, and that person would now be safe. So and this came from Guatemala, because you're the Survivor expert, in my opinion, Jordan. You correct me if I'm wrong, but in Guatemala at the Double Tribal Council, Brian Corden, I think it was Brian Corden. No, I don't forget now who it was, but somebody got to vote for somebody for safety, and the vote was like cast or read after the vote, and then that person would be immune. So that was kind of like where I thought of it, because it had only been done one time before on the real show, and I always thought it was kind of cool.
It's almost shocking to me that that there were no hinky votes thrown at that tribal council, because if they knew, I'm surprised like one or two people didn't just out of self-preservation throw a vote to save themselves, because it ends up being a 9-1 vote against Avanti. But if he had played that on Avanti, they don't know who they don't know who Avanti's voting for. I mean, maybe they assume it's going to be Sandy, and maybe some of them are like, okay, we know Avanti's voting for Sandy. I'm okay with Sandy going if you're not aligned with her. But it's sort of surprising because you don't know, just because Avanti says I'm voting for Sandy doesn't mean she's actually doing that. So it could have really been anyone there if Mark had played it on the person who got the majority of the votes. So really, I think kind of an interesting twist there, and I'm surprised it didn't change people's plans going into tribal council.
I agree.
Thank you, Kurt Carlson. It is a great twist. I remember when Chris pitched it, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, let's do that. And I think another interesting thought is, let's say you do save Avanti and Sandy goes home. Then I think Avanti, because the swap's about to happen, if Avanti ends up on your tribe, because feasibly she takes the spot of Sandy, I don't know, whatever. Someone pulls a different chip, the whole world's different. But if she ends up in Sandy's spot with Katie, I think you're in a really tricky spot if you lose the second challenge. But let's say you don't, I think you're in a great spot because Avanti is going to work with Katie. You're going to get Susan and Emily together, and you guys are just going to sort of, I think you essentially have the majority when you hit the merge. It's a really interesting thought experiment. It probably means you lose Sarah on the other side. The counterbalance of like, how do you keep everybody in this fantasy we have in our head?
I didn't even think about that. That's really crazy because Avanti and Katie would be together. So the whole season would have been more so dominated by the yellow tribe. And I think that would have put Anessa in a minority situation. And I think we would have saw an even crazier Anessa if she was in the minority. So thank you, Mark, for not doing that.
Keeping it on the down low. She's going to kill us. Well, so now we're in the swap, and I think this is the moment where you really get to bond with sort of the cohorts of Pete and Emily and Katie. And I know your relationship wasn't as close with Katie on the early days of the yellow tribe, but did you find that you were bonding more with Katie now that you had swapped and you were spending time with her?
Oh yeah, I really did like Katie. She was good in challenges. She was really personable, and I don't know. Yeah, I really liked her, but I think we didn't. I guess I don't know why we weren't so close in the beginning. I guess I was just talking to other people more.
I mean, when you swapped on the tribe, you sort of had a majority, but it was a small majority, so you couldn't really lose anybody. So I think that situation potentially forces you to work with the people who you started on a tribe with, or if you really didn't like the people you started on the tribe with and you felt like you're on the outs, which I don't think you were, which makes sense that you guys stayed together, because I think none of the people who really swapped with you were that much on the outs. I think that's something that just bonds you together. It's really a numbers thing.
Yeah, I think I remember the reason I didn't really get close to her is because I thought she was being really strategic, and that kind of scared me. So if anyone's like showing that they're thinking harder than I am, I'm like, oh, gotta go.
Mark, when do you think you would have voted me out in Survivor Buffalo?
When?
Yeah. Let's say we vote out Adam and we vote out Nick. Where do I?
Okay. Well, I think anybody watching needs to realize that Naomi and Mark both played Survivor Buffalo season 1, and this was after Survivor New York season 3. So let's just throw that out there so that people know.
Yeah, that Adam made a boneheaded move of putting us on the same tribe with Jared, and it was like, oh cool, I have a 3-person alliance on this tribe.
Yeah, that was.
Mark and I were on the plane together. This is my favorite Mark story, is that we flew to Buffalo together, and you got sat next to some guy who was so excited about the idea of live Survivor games. Do you remember this guy? No. And poor Mark is like, I just want to go, like, we just, we're in the rain. It was April and it was pouring in New York City, and we just got on this flight, and this guy would not stop talking to Mark about Survivor, and Mark just wanted to run. It was really funny because we weren't sitting next to each other. And he just comes up to me, he's like, I need to go.
I really don't remember that. I remember like wanting to sleep, but how do I forget about this guy?
That was one of my favorite moments. But anyways, we'll talk about we'll talk Survivor Buffalo a little later.
Yeah.
Were you gagged by the Charles vote? What did you think about when you see Charles has gone home? Because that was shocking to everyone, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it made no sense because like Gary's on that side, so there would be no reason if maybe if Gary was alone, they would vote him out. But like even in that sense, if you want to keep Charles, I would just vote out Gary then. But I just fully expected Sarah to be gone because, as you can see, I thought about giving her my idol. So I really thought Sarah was going, and I'm glad I didn't give the idol just because, like, she could have, you know, she pulled it off. She stayed.
Yeah. I think that's another like domino effect. If we had allowed you to give her the idol, she would have definitely played it, and then you wouldn't have had the idol at the merge, which would have probably resulted in both Pete and Katie going home. And
Yeah.
I think you could have still gotten to the end because you had Louis and you were very physically strong, but I think we would have saw a lot more yellows leave the game.
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
The butterfly flaps its wings. Yeah, I think that's a fun fact. Jordan, I don't know if you know about this, but Mark and Emily found the idol, and they came up to me and Chris, and they said, "Can we give Sarah the idol after Sarah's tribe lost before the Charles vote?" And we said, "No, you are now on separate islands. You could have given it to her at the challenge, but you can't give it to her anymore." And I think, for one, Sarah probably plays it idol on herself. I don't know if she votes for Charles another time, but there are enough Charles where Charles will still go home.
Yeah.
And you know, you lose an idol and you lose an ally no matter what. So it is an interesting, like, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's all I have to say.
I do think it's the right decision on your part because you're right. It's supposed to be like a mock Survivor game. And when you're on different camps, yeah, you're really like 100 feet away from each other. But when you're playing, but if you were playing actual Survivor and you're on two different islands, you wouldn't be able to do that. So I think that is the right choice production wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sarah, even though she only ends up getting one vote there from Vanessa, I do think that Sarah, even though it would have been technically a waste of the idol, I think if she plays it, you can't really fault her there because yes, everyone's telling her, "Oh, we're voting for Chinchaya, we're voting for Charles." When you're swapped into a minority, people are always telling you, "Oh yeah, we're not voting you out." But of course, but in your head, you're thinking, "Yeah, I'm in the minority. It's probably going to be me." So if I'm in Sarah's spot, I definitely play the idol there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think the only maybe potential of it being different is that Sarah might not fake like she has the idol, and then they don't get so spooked about voting for her. But I still think Sarah plays it up in a way to sort of scurry the masses. But you know, who knows? Maybe she goes absolutely wild and plays it on Charles. That would be hilarious. But
I would love that.
Maybe.
Yeah. And then Mark, you have to go through two really tough votes. Talk to us about losing Sadie and Josh, especially Josh, because I think you and Josh were forming somewhat of a connection over there. Talk us through these heartbreaking end of the day votes.
Okay, so I think there's a moment when I was like, I want to throw the challenge because I don't want Sarah to go home. And I think that was the one Charles went home on. But after that, I was like, I'm okay if we lose, just because, you know, I felt my two closest were on the other tribe, and they were then in the minority, so I was okay with losing. But Sandy, I don't even remember if we talked much beside her giving me the poncho. So I was fine with voting her. What I didn't know is that, I mean, I saw her see me find the idol. I didn't think she told anyone. And so watching it back, I realized she was like trying to get me out that episode. So that was fun to see. So I was very glad I got her out, or we voted for her that time. And then the Josh vote was a little bit harder because, you know, if Sarah's my closest ally, then I want to work with Josh because they're partners. So I wanted to keep him around, but there was something off about him. Like he was either playing really hard that kind of threw me off a little, and he kept lying that he had an idol. So that, I mean, if I was if I was in his position, I would be doing the same thing. But me being in my position, I was like, he gotta go.
I feel like when you're in that spot, you're almost. It's so hard to, I think, not vote Josh out in that spot because you're aligned with Emily. Like Emily is there with you in your alliance from your original tribe, and Susan's her mom. So like when you lose the first time, it gives you two options. And yes, you might want to keep Josh because she is Sarah's partner and Sarah's aligned with you and presumably some of the other people that you're working with from original Yellow. But then when it just comes down to the two of them, once you lost that second challenge, I really don't think you could have done anything besides vote out Josh there that doesn't lose Emily for you once you get to a merge situation. And that number could be huge. So I really I think you guys were kind of stuck.
Yeah, I think the only other person, if I really wanted to have Louis and Anessa, would just get rid of Eddie, because I think Anessa would be with Eddie the whole time, and that would hinder me getting to the end if I wanted to go with them too.
Yeah, Katie mentions that, and I think the merits to that are just that we know that Anessa will take Eddie super far if there's a purple majority. So it's the one move to maybe open up a spot for yourself, but it is also who is Anessa going to trust if they vote her brother out? Anessa will she'll analyze the shit out of you to be like, did you vote Eddie out? Why did you vote Eddie out? And then not work with you at all. So
that would have been good.
And I feel like Eddie's also a good shield, because not only is he the partner of Anessa, who is a very strong strategic player, he's a very strong physical player. So he's almost he's someone that you want in your alliance, but also I think someone who you have to cut at some point, which is what you guys did. What was it, the final 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about the merge vote, because the Charles vote was probably the most crazy vote in most people's minds, but I think the merge vote is either right there tied or second. So that night it was chaotic, everyone's scrambling and it's time to go to tribal council. Louis pulls out the idol. Were you surprised by that, or did he tell you anything?
No, he did not tell me anything, and that's why that happened, because we were not giving anyone, we were not trading information at all. I felt hesitation from him, so I was like, I'm not giving you anything if we're not, going to be playing together. I mean, obviously we're going to play together, but I just didn't feel like he wanted to give me anything. And obviously,
I don't know if it's in the episode, but there was a conversation you and Louis had, and it was basically you play your game and I'm going to play my game, and whatever happens. I think we're both okay because you had immunity and he, nobody was targeting him. So it was we'll reconvene after this. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. But which I thought we could have saved 2 idols, it really didn't. It was fun, a cool thing for the episode, and it was really shocking and fun to see. But I think we could have saved idols that round. And if we're gonna both vote off Pete and Louis, Pete and Hoy later on, why why waste it?
Mark, that was actually my biggest question for you coming into this podcast, because yes, you use your idol and you save Pete here. In the very next vote, you're one of the people who's voting Pete out. I was shocked when I saw that. I was so surprised that you were going to be one of the votes for Pete. I saw that it was 6 votes that came out, but I was like, Mark's probably not one of those people. But you were. So what made you go from willing to play an idol on him and save him, and this is an idol that you could have potentially used for yourself or for a closer ally down the road, to then voting him out at the next tribal council?
I think for me it was, I thought we were going to go to the next round. Yellow was going to be, in power, and we can vote out Anessa or, Sam. That was what I wanted to do. But then I realized I don't have Louis. He's not voting with me. He wants, to do get one of Yellow out and then go from there. Because he was in the minority at that point. Oh my God, what was I saying?
Like what made you go from saving Pete in one round to then voting him out in the next
Oh,
round?
okay. And then I realized Eddie flipped as well. So he voted. I think he voted. I don't even remember who he. Maybe Pete, the one before that I played my idol on him.
He voted for Hoy.
So
he did?
yeah, so it's 6 votes. This vote is so funny. It's 6 votes for Hoy, where Gary votes for Hoy as well as Susan, but then Sanchea, Sam, and Anessa vote for Pete. So the Sam Pete vote is very funny, and then 2 people. So you and Pete vote for Sanchea, and Louis and Hoy vote for Katie.
Okay.
So Eddie votes for Hoy, but he does vote for Pete the next round.
Yeah. So I think we reconvened the next morning, and Eddie was just like, "Yeah, I'm with Inessa now," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Then I like at that point I had to decide, like, am I gonna go with Louis and Eddie and vote with them, or am I gonna stay with original yellow? And I think the deciding factor was that everyone was saying Pete was the biggest threat, and I think I just fed into it. I was like, yeah, and he from the whole pre-merge, he was the one mostly making all the decisions or saying everything. And in my position, I was like, I can't have someone, dictating all my moves. Like, I need to make my own moves. So he was the biggest threat for me and not making any moves. So for that reason, I voted him.
And I remember you saying, like, earlier in the game when you were on original yellow, he was one of the people you were closest with. Do you think that if maybe basically that was an interesting vote. It was a 6-3 to 2 vote. So essentially, if the 3 people who voted for Hoy plus the 2 people who voted for Sarah plus you voted for somebody else besides Pete, it would have been a majority against whoever you guys picked. Do you think that would have been something that, like, do you think that Pete was too big of a threat to just leave in at that point, or do you think that could have potentially been a better route forward for you?
So that, I think that would have been a better play for me at that point. I think I realized that Inessa was the one who pulled me into voting out Pete. So I think I would have convened everyone, the original yellow minus Eddie, because I knew where all the votes were going, because I knew about the Pete plan and I knew about the other 2 plans. So I could have gotten everyone to vote Inessa, and that would have been the best move for me, because I knew she was great. She pulled me over. So like, she was she came to me in the tent while we were sleeping, and she was like, let's talk. And no one else was doing that. So I was pretty sure that she needed to go at that point.
That's actually an interesting thing, like, that you don't really see on the show in Survivor New York. There's the whole night, which is one of the longest portions of the game, where, like, I remember when I was there for season 4, like, people were, I went to sleep before the like game talk stopped happening. So there's like a really, like, a long period of time that you don't see where people make alliances. It's the kind of thing in Survivor where if you see who's sleeping next to who, you can maybe get an idea of what the alliances are. So is there anything that you took from that night besides, Inessa coming to speak with you that maybe shaped either your moves or some things that happened in the game?
Yeah, Inessa and we were really the only ones strategizing at night. And then Emily came out when she was like, I need to be in this conversation, because if Mark flips, then I'm done, So she really, like, I wish she came out sooner. So, like, Inessa didn't really talk to me at all. It's because I would have, like, not flipped. But the next morning, everyone's out of the tent except me and Gary were just, like, passed out, and, like, no one woke us up. No one's in the tent. Everyone's, like, eating breakfast. And we were like, we're next. Like, we got to work together.
That's hilarious.
This is so funny because I remember in Survivor Buffalo, Mark, like, you and I had to sleep, and I just passed the fuck out. I was in a tent with my friends Lizzie and Maddie, and I was like, I don't want to talk about the game. I want to go to bed. Like, we were all really cranky at that point, and you were the same. You slept with Andrew, and we were just like, I'm going to bed. Don't talk to me.
Oh no, that was so bad. That was probably the worst night of my life. It was freezing.
So
and
cold.
he was just talking the whole night.
Yeah.
So Mark,
don't talk to me. I'm sleeping.
The next 2 episodes, Mark, I think we could kind of clump them together. So Sarah and Emily, you kind of, like, I don't know, I want to say you pumped them with hope and with opportunity that you were going to work with them, but in the end, you decided not to work with them and you got them out. So like, can you talk to me about like why you did that, and did you ever have real intention of working with them or trying to save them? Because it feels like you just ended up voting all your allies out in a way.
Yeah. So my main thing was, Louis, I'll give you Pete, and then we need to take out Sam, Inessa, or Hoy. Like, we'll do it back and forth, and we'll get out people and have like a core. And like, I don't want to get rid of all my people because I trust them. And I'm sure, I don't even know why he didn't, because he didn't trust them at all either. So it was kind of confusing why he didn't come with me. Mm-hmm. So voting Sarah, I never wanted to vote Sarah. Like, watching it back, I didn't even remember I voted for Sarah. But I did the numbers in my head, and I was like, even if I don't vote for Sarah, then she's going home anyway. So I did just voted her, so I didn't have a target the next round. And the same with Emily. There was literally nothing I could do at that point because Louis wasn't flipping. Like, the only thing I could do was convince Louis or Eddie, but Eddie like was doing anything Inessa said. So I only had Louis or Gary like on the fence.
Mm-hmm. I think that's like a thing in Survivor after like early merge after the swap. Whenever someone comes to you who you might be aligned with, and this is a different dynamic because it's a blood versus water season, and you knew Louis before the game. Whenever someone comes to you and says like, "Oh, you know what? Let's get out someone on your tribe, and then we can get out someone on my tribe." The person who comes to you with that plan is usually lying and usually has no intention of getting the person out from his tribe. He's just doing it to get the numbers, and I think that's something that's happened in CBS Survivor, live games, orgs. It happens all. I think that's always a red flag when someone says to you, "Let's get one from you first." Then you should always demand like, "No, let's get someone out from your side first."
Yeah,
well, I agree with that.
That was my plan.
Right. I think a good example of this is like David versus Goliath, right? Where like the Davids have to like, idle people out and nullify people out to like get people to go home before the Goliaths will even consider working with the Davids in reality. And they do that for the Alec vote and all that, but it sort of takes a breaking of the system that you guys just didn't have the power to do. I'm curious, I think maybe the Pete and Sam relationship might have done something if they were still in the game, but I think that Gary chimes in with a great point here. I think Inessa was just so dominant that it made it feel like it couldn't happen. And I agree. I think Inessa, she says it in her interview, she likes to make her power alliance and stick with it. She does not like to flip. Yeah. She does not like to consider other options. She just wants to go to the end with the people that she's working with. And I think in this situation, Louis might have been more flexible, but Inessa was never going to let it happen. And Eddie in tow, there was no room for error in this situation.
But you know what? I want to say something about the whole flip-flopping. One of the interesting points of the season is that, Mark and Louis didn't have that relationship that the other pairs had. Like some were family members, some were, friends for many years. But Mark, I don't even know how long you knew Louis for, but I'm assuming less than maybe a year, right?
Yeah. And
something like that.
Yeah.
So you didn't have that trust with him. So if this opportunity fell onto the lap of, say, like, I don't know, Sam and Pete, I think that it would have worked, a flip-flop back and forth. Yeah. It just was a very interesting scenario that the opportunity arose for you two people that kind of were brought into the game out of convenience, and you had a sort of friendship, or I guess friendship, and it's like, if maybe you guys had known each other longer, or maybe you were dating, like it could have been different, like on the votes. Maybe Louis would have given you like one person from his side. Yeah. But I think he took a little bit of advantage of you, and he did what he wanted in the end. He just knew that you'd be like a number to follow along, just like Eddie was for Inessa.
Yeah, exactly. And
Chris just said you should have made a relationship to do better in this game. That's what he just said.
Yeah, I should have put a ring on it, I guess. But I think sorry, I already lost what I was going to say.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think Louis and Anessa,
Oh.
you had the worst. The part of it that was the worst is the Purple Tribe was full of gamers, and they were so focused on getting themselves ahead.
Yeah, and I think the reason, like the way that Louis did that and like didn't give me any leeway, and when I saw that Sam found an advantage, I didn't tell him for 3 full tribal councils, and that was the thing that sent him home. So
Oh God, I didn't know that you didn't tell him that.
yeah, I was like, I don't trust you. I'm not going to give you this information. And Sam, I felt like he wasn't going to use it on me because he told me about it. Well, I mean, I saw him find it, but he knew I didn't tell anyone. Well, I told Gary, but they were working together, so it kind of worked out for me. And then he was like, me, you, Gary, final 3, and I was like, sure, whatever. Like, take Louis out. I can't beat him in the end anyway.
So next round, we get out probably one of the biggest characters of the season, Hoy. Do you take any credit for that elimination? Because it was finally a purple person. Anessa claims that it was like her and Louis' move, but I feel like you had sort of wanted him out for a long time as well. So do you remember anything from that vote?
I remember like trying to get him out for like 3 votes because, like, as you can see at some tribal councils, like he was so aggressive, and I was like I think even during the merge vote, the reason we voted for him was emotional. Like, I think that was one of our downfalls too, is that like Emily was like, I don't want to play with this guy. Like, we need to get him out. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I have the necklace. Let's just vote him out because, it's hard. But I think during the one he went out, I felt totally fine. Like, I felt Anessa was finally working with me, like, and wanted, to work with me and Louis. But I remember trying to bring up his name, that tribal council, or that round. So I think, I don't know. I think I went around saying his name most of the time and trying to convince people.
So you voted for Susan there. So I mean, obviously, it was clear that you knew Hoy was going. You had confessionals about it. Was that just in case like Hoy had an idol, and then like whoever Hoy votes for would go home if you didn't throw a vote on Susan there?
Yeah, I think so too. Looking back, I'm like, why did I vote Susan? Like, I was working with her. I should have voted like Inessa or someone that like would have been a bigger threat. And I don't know. Yeah, it's different to look back on it because I become very close with Susie towards the end. Or Susan.
Well, to give everybody a little grain of salt, I guess, is like it was like day 2 and it was exhausting. So you're just trying to make sure that it's not you, and like Susan's a good person to sort of lose at that point in time. Is like, yeah, like we'll lose another purple, but down the line it becomes very clear that Susan is very tied to you guys, and perhaps like, Anessa would have been a better, it's so because perhaps in the long run Anessa would have been a better alternate vote, but Hoy was going home, so the likelihood was that
And I also it was the same as sorry.
No, I was going to say, did you know that Gary had Hoy's idol at all?
No,
Were you?
No, I never knew.
Yeah.
Until the final 5, I found out. That was very fun to find out. Did I tell you about that?
You texted me that you wanted to talk about it. I don't know if we want to get there yet, but
okay, we can wait.
Chris, what else do you got on the docket? What else we got to talk about?
Okay, so the next vote, it's a big one because we blindside Anessa's right-hand man, her brother Eddie. But looking at it, you joining the board to get rid of Eddie leaves you as the last yellow, and very obviously the last pair in the game, and then you've had the most immunity wins. I feel like in a way, like it painted your target so big getting rid of Eddie. So like, can you walk me through why you wanted Eddie? Was there a majority already there? I mean,
well, I just watched this episode like 10 minutes ago. So you can see that I wanted Sam. Like Sam was like the plan in the beginning of that episode. I didn't have I didn't have a bigger relationship with him than Eddie, but I was also scared of Anessa. So it was like one or the other, like either like weakening Anessa because no one wants to vote her out because they think they can beat her in the end. So at that point I was like, she's never going. And then voting for Sam has the advantage, who might take Louis out, but I'm okay with that maybe. So I think to get Eddie out, I think I could win more immunities to get myself to the end if like people keep, like I thought I was going to get out at like 4 or 5 anyway. I wanted to have the most way to win the immunity every time. So getting like the immunity beast out, I would have more chance to getting to the end. So that's what I went with at the end.
Was there any thought there at the final 7? There's you and Louis, there's one pair, and then there's Anessa and Eddie, who's another pair. That's 2 pairs. You guys could have potentially come together, and I don't know if this would have been best for your game or not, but it is an option. It would give you a 4 out of 7 majority. Was there any talk between the 4 of you that was like, maybe we should just go pairs to the final 4, or at least the final 5, and then whoever is that 5th person is sort of the swing vote?
Yeah, that was the plan. You can see me, like the 4 of us saying Sam, like we were all on Sam. Like we were really into it, and then the both of them do vote for Sam, so it could have been like they could have really wanted to work with us, but I was so paranoid about Inessa being paranoid that I was like, I can't let Eddie get any further. But looking back, I think if we voted out Sam, then Gary and Inessa have idols, so I feel like they're either going to take me or Louis out anyway. So it would have worked out the same. I don't think the only chance that we would have had is if they voted for Gary, because Inessa was getting like vibes that he was with both sides. So I think she would have voted for him maybe, but he had the idol, so it didn't matter. So either me or Louis would have went home anyway that round, I think. The only chance if one of us stayed, we either voted for Eddie and Inessa played it on herself. So it was like a 50-50 shot.
Naomi, I think we kind of went over this with Anessa, that for her, it made no sense for her to play her idol because she would have ended up placing worse. But I think in the case for Mark and Louis, if they had stayed loyal to Eddie and Anessa, that I think Mark and Louis both make it to the final 5 in this case, and it just depends on immunity from there out. So not saying that it would have happened, but I think one of you would have definitely made it to the final tribal council if you guys had stayed with the pair.
Yeah. Like so my thinking is Louis the bigger threat and Anessa is possibly the bigger threat. If 2 yellows make it to the end, then it's not as huge of a threat as 1 yellow making it to the end. But if Louis makes it to the end, he beats you both. So it's this weird sort of dynamic of like, who beat who, and if you're going to take Susan along, if you're going to take Gary along. I do think there's a situation where Anessa makes it to the final 5 with, let's say Anessa makes it to the final 6 with Eddie, and instead we lose Sam. So Sam's extra vote is out the window. So at this vote, you have Susan, so the 3 of you have a vote. And you can probably get what you need to get done, which is get rid of Anessa. I think that's a big move for you and can be spun to Louis as, hey, you're not going to beat Anessa. You need to get rid of Anessa, hoping that Louis doesn't sort of see that the jury is not likely to vote for Anessa.
What do you think about her idol, though? Does she play it for herself or does she play it on Eddie?
I think she plays it, though. I think she definitely plays it at 6. It really comes down to immunity because I feel like that challenge is something that Eddie or Mark or Louis would have ended up winning. Actually, well, Anessa was very close on that challenge too.
What challenge was that?
It was the stacking the Jenga blocks. Let's actually say, because Anessa did get second in the challenge.
Yeah, I think
she wins immunity. She probably plays the idol on Eddie. But then again, like realistically, like is Anessa selfish enough to say, hey, I have immunity. I'm not going to use my idol on my brother. I'm going to use it for myself at Final 5 to guarantee my spot at Final 4. So, Jordan, what do you think? Is Anessa going to save it for herself, or is she going to play it on her brother?
I'm sort of two minds. When you have an idol that deep in the game, it's always a risk to play it on somebody else because you're losing an opportunity to play it on yourself. And Anessa had said multiple times that she didn't think it, which I don't know if this was the case because I know Mark has said, and some other players have said that they actually did want to go to the end with Anessa. But I think she was of the mindset at this point where people did not want to go to the end with her. So if you play it on your brother, yes, you're saving Eddie, but you might go there. If there's a split vote and you play an idol on Eddie and you go home, then you look really dumb. However, there's the other point too, where if you play an idol on Eddie, you do save Eddie and somebody else goes home. Let's say Sam. I guess Sam would have been the one going home in that situation. Then now it's just another point on your resume where Anessa's whole speech to the jury was about the fact that she played this strategic game. If she had seen the fact that the votes were going to go on Eddie, she plays an idol for Eddie, she saves her brother, she goes to the end with Eddie and somebody else, or even goes to the end just with two random people. It's just another thing that looks good for her in the strategic element of the game.
Right.
So I didn't really answer your question. I sort of did a 50-50 there. Do I think that if she thinks that Eddie's going home there, my guess is that she doesn't play the idol, because if she thinks that Eddie's going home, it means that she realizes that the other 5 people in the game are voting against Eddie, which means that if they're doing that, they have the numbers to split the vote. So the logical thing to do, I think, would be actually to split the votes on Eddie and Anessa. So in that situation, if I'm in Anessa's shoes, my guess is that they split the votes. And if I play an idol on Eddie, it means I'm going home at that tribal council and I look like an idiot. So I don't think she would have done it, but I don't think it's necessarily because she's being selfish. I think she's thinking of the possibility of a split vote. Because if Eddie's going home, it means that you have 5 out of, or at least 4 out of 7 people against you.
Well, and I think another interesting thing is, Mark, you were really close to winning Final Four immunity, right? You were.
Not really.
No, not really. Okay, so I was gonna say I don't know how much Eddie would have won Final Four immunity, and maybe Gary was close.
Because
Eddie was running in the puzzle.
Yeah, it was running in the puzzle. I think the thing that let me get into the final 6 and we'll go to the Final Four, but I want to give my opinion about that.
Okay, so that's all to say that I think losing Eddie at Final Four would have been great for Anessa, because I think I've said it a bunch this season. You want your loved ones on the jury to vote for you, like guaranteed vote for you, except for maybe
and you don't want to be a Missy and Baylor at the end. Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Well,
exactly.
Missy and Baylor didn't go to the end, but they tried.
Yes, that's
exactly.
True.
You want your guaranteed loved one, because I think also the chance that you go with your loved one diminishes your chances of winning. Like if Missy and Baylor go to the end, I don't think, I think they get no votes, and I think Natalie wins 9.
They lose to whoever, most likely Natalie, potentially Keith if he wins that last immunity. It depends on who
9-0.
Immunity.
Yeah, that's true.
Or I think Jacqueline. Well, we're not talking about Survivor Sam sir, but I think Jacqueline.
Okay. So, Mark, were you surprised when Louis was voted out instead of you? Because you didn't win immunity. You were obviously a big threat. You were a challenge beast. When you saw Louis' name come up, how did that feel for you?
Yeah, I don't think I expected it. I thought about it just because I knew he had that. But the way it happened, and I didn't know he was going to use it because he didn't tell me when he was going to use it. I knew it was either me or him, but I thought it would be Louis more just because he kind of wanted him out the whole game.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't going to be Susie because it wasn't a big move and he was acting all like, this is the biggest move of the game kind of thing. So I knew it was a big name. And Louis had more, a bigger social game than me in probably, winning those jury votes. So I didn't think it was going to be me.
I love that confessional. Sam does give that confessional where he talks about we're about to make a big Sam. I think Sam gave such good confessionals during the season. Just as an aside, he was somebody on the show. I could see his confessionals on CBS Survivor. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but Sam also gives 3 confessionals that are I'm making the big move in this game, and 2 of them.
It's a great soundbite. It's a fantastic soundbite. I could see that on the promo for on the CBS promo for the next episode, which is always stuff that never actually happens. But I just Sam cracks me up for the whole season.
He's great. He does give really great confessionals.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
And
so
I
Louis gone. Like, Mark, you get this advantage. Like, what is your reaction when we hand you this note?
Oh my god. I was like, this is probably the only thing that'll save me because I had no idol. They're gonna get me out before Susie because I don't know. They think, I mean, I've won 3 immunities by then, so they're really gonna like. They're definitely voting me out. Like, there's no question
Yeah.
about it. And the only thing I had was finding an idol, or this we're winning immunity. So this was just like a step to winning immunity. So I was really glad I got that, and I was really glad Louis went home.
Chris,
and
you
a big
had
thing.
mentioned.
I was just gonna say
sorry,
big thank you to Louis for mentioning that he had it because we forgot.
Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned on the actual edit of the show that this was like the advantage that Malcolm gets at the Final Four of the Philippines, and Malcolm, it doesn't help Malcolm at all. He's bad at that challenge. He drops, and then he drops again because he's bad at the challenge. So I'm thinking like, yes, it's an advantage because obviously if you drop, it gives you a second chance to win. But I was like, you know what, this isn't that helpful of an advantage. But then it actually was the reason you won there, Mark, because you dropped during the transition, but then you were able to pick it up. You figured out whatever it was that you had to do, and you beat Sam at the challenge. He dropped before you did. So props to you for pulling off what Malcolm could not.
Yes, thank you. That was like
I have to say, like, that almost didn't happen for Mark because he couldn't get it up again, and I think it dropped one more time, but then he tried again really quick, and he slowly got it up there. And everyone on production was like going crazy. Like, we couldn't believe this was going. It lasted for 21 minutes, the whole challenge.
It's my last like lifeline in this game, and I'm like having so much fun. I like think I'm playing well. I want to win. Production, I felt like production was like rooting me on. Like, I felt really cocky at that moment, so I was like, I gotta win. Like, I need to win this game. So I was like, and like even on the blocks, it was the blocks that we played for OTEV, so it was people's names. So I faced like Sarah and Katie and Emily were like faced me, and then I was holding them together, and I was like, I just repeated their name. I'm like, oh, I got to do this for them.
And you were in such a like uncomfortable position. I mean, your back must have hurt so bad. Like, Sam was shaking. It looked so uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was
I remember asking you like afterward, like, so like why, like how did you do this? And you said something like, oh, because you told me to like you gotta dig deep, and I felt like, wow, that my propeness like really popped out and like helped somebody.
Yeah, I was like, you're right.
Out.
Yeah, I was like, you're right. I need to do this. Like, I have nothing left to lose. Like, if I lose, I'm going home. You know, like I have nothing else. So I was like,
I think it's really compelling because what Sam does is Sam basically goes from this to this. He pivots his hands upwards, and I actually think that's how they do the real challenge and or I don't know, but like I think you see people fail when they do the challenge that way because it tends to like you lose a little bit of control and you push it together much more easily. Whereas you were basically like, please don't fall, please don't fall. And I think you can hear in the video footage, because I was filming you can hear me gasp because I'm so excited that Sam drops. No offense to Sam, but I was like, oh my God, Mark is going to make it to the final. Because like, if Mark loses at Final 5, it's such a boring Final 4. No offense to, like, it becomes like what everybody was complaining about the Amazing Race this season of like, we know that the Final 3 are trying to get that 4th person out. And like with Susan didn't even want to make the Final 3. So it's not compelling. No offense to Susan, who I love very dearly, but like Mark needed to be in that Final 4 to have the story be so interesting no matter the result. And it was like, oh my God, he did it. Like, I was so excited.
Yeah, I think I agree with you because in a way it was like from a production side, it's a storyline. It's like we have this underdog from like, I think from the beginning, because you're kind of like a little guy, you know, like I think a lot of people underestimated you, but you had a lot of like immunity wins and bold moves in the game, and you were constantly in the minority kind of at the merge, and you were the last yellow out of the final 6, and you were able to still scoot to the Final 4. And that 4th place spot, they call it the robbed goddess spot because it's like the person that almost should have won every season of Survivor kind of got like that spot. And I think in your scenario, you probably would have won if you had gone to the Final 3.
Yeah, I think about it a lot still. Ooh, yeah, robbed goddess. But I mean, yeah, I think I mean, we lost all the time. Like, I went to mostly every tribal council except maybe 2.
Yeah, technically you don't. You are at one of the only 2 that you don't go
that's
to.
true, yeah. And you do cast a vote.
I missed one tribal council.
You go to every tribal council except for the Charles vote.
He does, yeah.
And I feel like so you guys vote Susan out there, and I feel like this Final Four. I mean, I knew the results at this point because, like I said, I knew you were coming in either 4th or 5th. I forgot which one going into the season, so I knew you weren't making the end, and I knew that Gary was going to win, and Sam was going to come in 2nd, and Anessa was going to come in 3rd. But if I was someone watching the season without knowing the results, I could have seen it like 25% for any of you. I really think there's things that you could point to in each of your games that you could see, like, I think that this person could win. You could look at Gary's mix of, I think, social and strategic game that I think I've always felt like the social and strategic game on Survivor, you need to make them work with each other. Like, you need to use your social skills to get people to trust you to go along with your strategic decisions, and you need to be strategic in order to gain respect. And because if people just like you but they don't respect you, they're not going to vote for you. So I feel like Gary had that. I feel like you had the underdog story of coming from yellow, you had the immunity wins, and then you also had a strategic game, getting people to work with you, different people from different starting tribes throughout the game. Anessa had her strategic game, which she outlined at the finals, and then I think Sam had this fantastic social game where he's like such an engaging personality, and Anessa makes that point at the final tribal where she's like, if you're voting for someone who you want to drink a beer with, you're going to vote for Sam. So I feel like each of you had qualities that could make you a Survivor winner. So it was so exciting, even though I knew the results going into that Final Four, because I think all 4 of you had a case to potentially win the game.
Yeah, I think so too. Even when I was voted out and I was deciding who to vote for, there were so many reasons that I would vote for each just based on how they played with me in general.
Yeah.
Like, when I vote, I usually vote on, obviously it's my vote. I vote how I feel. I was closest with Gary. I thought Anessa played the best game, and Sam was able to get me to think I had like a chance to work with him to like the final 3, and I didn't tell Louis about his advantage. So, like, he really, Anessa and Sam really like pulled me in later in the game. That really shouldn't have.
Yeah, and I think a testament to Sam and Gary, we had a 2-hour podcast about it, but they were working in lockstep to keep each other safe, and they were very successful at doing that. So Sam may have played a physical game, and we may see that as like, we played a physical game, but they made it super far, understanding that we know exactly who we need to get out to succeed. So I agree with you. I think every single person has merits and qualities that would have made them a great winner of Survivor New York, and that's what you want to see in a Final Four. That's what we love to see it.
Talking about the Final Four. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you had a second part.
Go ahead, Jordan, please. I've talked enough in this.
Very curious about this, Mark, because I think that this was an interesting vote, and a lot of times Final Four votes aren't that interesting. But this
wait, I'm so sorry, Jordan. Before we get here, we need to talk about the idols because Mark texted me about it. So let's talk about the final 5 idols really quickly.
Sure, no problem.
And then Jordan, we're coming
right back. Hold that thought.
I don't know. For me, I thought it was like the funniest part of the season because, I have the necklace. The only thing I could do is try to save Susie. So me and her are like running around looking for an idol. And then, the place where we slept was just like a tarp, but it was see-through.
Right.
And then,
you can kind of see it in the final 5 challenge.
Yeah, you could see it. We were standing like in front of it. So I'm like looking around for the idol. And then through the tarp, I see Gary and Inessa, and they're both like looking at their like crotches. And then I see Gary pull out an idol, and he's like, "Yo, guess what I got?" And then Inessa does the same thing. And I'm like, oh my God. Me and Susie are just wandering around looking for this idol. And both of them are blatantly like flinging them around in my face. And I was just like, all right, Susie's going home. There's nothing I could do. The only thing we do was like plead that Gary played it on Susan. That was my only hope.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'm
and
so shocked by
That's
that.
like I think that's such like a high risk and not even that high reward of a thing to do for for Gary to not play the idol on himself there when there's another idol. You know that Mark, you're the one that I think they would have voted out, but you're immune. I feel like for Gary, there's really no upside there. And if he had done that, like I don't think he would have won the game, and I think it would have been a crazy move, which is why Gary didn't do it because he's a smart player.
Yeah, for me, I think he didn't make any moves at that point. So I was like, you need to make a move. Like there was nothing in his, what do you call it? Resume. So I was like, this is my move. I was like, Gary, you have to do this. Like, you need something to show. But I mean, obviously I didn't know everything. So.
Well, and another side of this, I think, is that Gary actually, you see him, these last couple of votes, he takes a long time to vote. You can watch it in that episode of all the voting confessionals. And I think it's because he is really thinking about what is the next move, what is going to benefit me. And I think he comes to this like heartbreaking realization that like the best move is to lose Susan. And nobody wants that, but that's, it had to be done. So I think like that's Gary knows he has to do it. And then I think at Final Four, he is thinking a lot about it as well. And, now we're here, and Jordan, we can definitely talk about this. He definitely considers your proposition of like, vote with me. Let's vote for Anessa. So Jordan, what were you saying?
Yeah. So my point. So the Final Four vote ends up being a 2-2 tie, where you and Gary vote for Anessa. Sam and Anessa vote for you. So for my first question, did you know that Gary was going to vote against Anessa, and did you know that Sam was going to vote for you?
Yeah, Sam definitely was going to vote for me. I don't remember us even talking that vote.
You were confident that Gary was going to vote with you for Anessa to cause a tie.
Well, as Naomi likes to say, I threatened Gary. I was like,
I saw that was on the episode where you're like, you're not getting my jury, which I liked. But the thing here, so if you knew that there was going to be one for you and one for Anessa, was there any thought to go to Anessa, who I think you had mentioned multiple times at Tribal Council, that you felt pretty confident that you were going to beat her if you got to the end with her? Was there any thought here to say to Anessa, look, I know we've sort of been strategizing against each other. They're voting for one for each of us. What if we put our 2 votes on Gary, who's a very big threat to win the game, obviously? And I'm looking at this as someone who knows that Gary's going to win at this point. So maybe I don't know if you guys are thinking that at this point, but I mean, certainly as a viewer who knows that Gary's going to win, I have the benefit of knowing the outcome. But is there any thought of doing a 2-1 vote, which would have sent Gary home? And then I think you would have, as the only yellow person there, I think you would have had a really good chance to win the game in that final 3.
Yeah, so I definitely thought about that. The only thing that drew me away is if Gary and Inessa talked, and then I would get no vote, nothing from Gary. It would just be 3-1. So it kind of scared me away from doing that. But I did think about it.
I also think Anessa's not the person who's going to go for that, which makes it 10 times harder.
Yeah, because she knows.
She's not going to bring a yellow to the end.
Yeah, she thinks I'm definitely going to win, at that point. So I don't even think she would have done it. And
so that's also a big factor, because you have to take everyone's perception into account. And I didn't know, it's hard. It's sometimes hard to tell because I'm just seeing it as a viewer, what her perception of Gary's ability to win at the end versus yours. So I guess if she felt that you had a better chance to win than Gary, who ends up winning the game, then of course she's not going to do it, and then it's a moot point. But it's hard to get that as a viewer, because you're not constantly getting people's takes of what they think the jury is going to do.
And I think it's a great question to ask Mark, because we've never asked him, hey, did you think about splitting it 2-1-1? But
that's really interesting, because I think they did that on Australian Survivor, the most recent one, and that was and only on Australian Survivor, you see moves that are so creative, so different, that no one on the American show even thinks about. And I think that could have been super iconic, would have changed the entire game. But
Shout out to my friend Shannon Gus, who's a big fan of the 2 to 1 to 1 plurality vote. That's something I was literally just talking to her before we got on this podcast. I was like, I have to ask that question because it really applies to this season. But Mark, I think you explained it well. Where if Anessa is not going to go for it, then there's no way to do it.
Yeah. So are we going to convert Shannon Gus to live reality game fandoms now, or
I do want to say about that Final Four immunity challenge that going into it, knowing the challenge, I said, I'm pretty sure Mark is going to win it because he is, very fast. He's young. He's fit. He checks off all the boxes. So one of the rules were that you had to find your puzzle board. And if you look in the footage, Mark is looking in the ground, looking through, I don't know what you call it, the dirt. No one else is. And he doesn't find his piece until the end because his is inside, where the playground is, on the top piece where, the kids kind of crawl through. So he finds his last. And I think that's what sets his failure, is because he found it so late. But if he had found it first, I think that he would have ended up winning the challenge and then the game.
Yeah, that was my problem. My fault. I was looking on the ground and it looked like you guys buried them. They were like it looked like the soil was kind of overturned. So I was like, oh, they're under, you buried them. So I ran to that spot, started digging, and then I realized everyone else already found the 3 that were easy. So I kind of set myself up there for being too eager and too fast to run out there instead of look for
I was just going to say the other side of it is that as we know from our conversation with Sam looked at that puzzle from the Sanchea versus Serena competition and remembered which piece doesn't fit and kept that in his brain until the Final Four. So
it didn't even occur to me that it was the same puzzle because, again, that I watched that episode when it aired, so this is weeks and weeks ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Literally
Sam,
12, 13 weeks ago.
I know. So Sam told us, he was like, I kept that in my brain. I remembered which puzzle piece didn't fit, and then I used that. So there is still a chance that maybe you luck out and figure it out, but Sam has that puzzle in his brain lockstep. Yeah. So there's it's pretty hard to beat him at this point.
Yeah,
he's the Spencer Bledsoe of this season, where he who memorized the 5-piece puzzle going into Survivor Kagiyan. But that's pretty cool. That's a good callback, and it's part of Survivor is having good observational skills, and that's something that helped Sam get to the end. And Mark, if you win that challenge, so you're immune. Obviously, I think it didn't really matter between Sam, Gary, and Anessa who won. I think you were gone there if you didn't win immunity. How do you think the game plays out? If you win immunity, first of all, who do you vote for there? Who goes there, and then who wins at the end if you're there against Gary and Anessa, or Sam and Gary, or Sam and Anessa?
So I actually never thought about that. I don't know why. I think I came off of Gary voting out Louis and Susan, so I probably, and I know I feel like he is my closest at that point, so I don't know if I would have voted him out. I probably would have voted Anessa out at that point because I thought she was the biggest threat, even if other people didn't. And then, did you ask if I had a chance at winning?
Yeah. So so basically in that situation, if you think that you and Gary both would have voted for Anessa, Anessa either votes for Sam or Gary. I don't know who she votes for there. Yeah. It's all really going to depend on Sam's vote because he could either make it a 3-1 vote against Anessa, or he could vote with Anessa and tie it up against Gary potentially. So what do you think would have happened if you had won that?
I think with the necklace, I would always go for a tie at Final Four. You can guarantee, you can promise someone a vote and you're not going home. They'll give them, if you give me your jury vote, I'll save you, you can literally do anything at that moment. But going into the jury, I'm not the best. I think I said this in one of the episodes, but I'm not the best at public speaking. And I think the hardest part would be me trying to convince people to vote for me. Sometimes I mumble, sometimes I stumble on my words, and then I lose my train of thought. So I think my gameplay, I think I would have won with strategic and social and physical because I won a lot. I don't know if anyone cares about that, but I thought
you would have had the record. You would have had 5. So
yeah. So I thought I had the best chance, and even though I voted off my people, I think they would have voted for me to win.
I think so.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I still think I would have won, but Gary had a really good speech, so
Yeah.
it would have been between one of us.
It's interesting. Pete says that he would have voted for you, even if Sam was in the finals, which is, I think, the funniest thing to ever happen in this season.
I don't agree with that. Sam, I mean, Pete says that now, but in the moment, he would have felt the same way about Sam. He would have voted for Sam.
His friend plus brother equals Sam.
Yes. Which reminds me, I just mailed that to somebody yesterday.
Oh, nice.
So we have 9 jurors. Who am I missing? I'm not going to read the names because then they're going to be mad that
I think it's obvious. Susan, Emily, and Sarah are like a lock for Mark. I think Katie pretty much is a lock for Mark. And then after that, he just really needs like one more vote.
Really
and in this situation, I wonder who Anessa votes for, because Anessa's probably on the jury. If Mark
Anessa said she would vote for Sam no matter what, and Eddie would vote whoever Anessa says. So that would be 3 votes for Sam because it would also be Pete. So then Sanchea would probably vote for Gary. Hoya would vote for Gary. Louis would vote for Mark. So Mark would win 5-3-2.
Okay,
that would be my guess.
I love these what ifs, but like, what if Gary's not there? What if it's Mark, Sam, and Anessa? Like, what if Anessa and Mark both decide to do my crazy 2-1-1 vote, and Gary's
all right,
not?
Hang on. Okay, hang on. Let me do this. Okay, so if Anessa is not in the final 3, and if Gary's not in the final 3, and it's Anessa, Mark, and Sam,
I feel like Mark still probably wins.
Okay, so then Pete votes for Sam. Eddie votes for Anessa. Katie maybe votes for Sam.
Let's say maybe, but I think the rest go to Mark.
Sarah, I think maybe Hoy votes for Anessa, maybe. Sanchea, I don't know what she's going to do. And then you have Sarah, Emily, Susan, Louis. So no matter what, I think if you're in the finals, you have that base of Sarah, Emily, Susan, Louis, which is 4 votes, and all you need are 5. So as long as you pull one other vote over, you're pretty solid.
Yeah.
In all of these scenarios.
Well, that sucks.
You know what? I think you guys don't realize something. This is a topic that I wanted to bring up, is that Mark is one of the best live reality game players that I've seen. After Survivor New York, he goes to play all these other live reality games, and he does well. I mean, Survivor Brooklyn South, it was just a tribe swap situation.
Yeah, it was a certain someone in this podcast.
Every other game, I mean, look, even on that tribe that he was on, the Beauty Tribe, he won 4 tribal immunities. Okay, so that game is over. He does bad, not a big deal. He goes to Survivor Buffalo. He wins individual immunities. He does make it pretty decently far. Then he goes on to Survivor Pennsylvania, makes it to the Final 4. I think he won like 2 or 3 challenges there as well, which is pretty impressive. And I think your legacy is that you have a really great social game. You're never like a big target to people. You're good in challenges. And I think a lot of people just want to work with you. So I think you are like the beginning stages of like an Ame or like a Lance or, or Kirk Carlson, like a big name in the live reality game. You just have to keep going. And Jordan is definitely one of those people too.
Well, I haven't played that many times, but I will say in that game that Mark and I played together, like I got swapped over with 2 people that were like my closest allies from my original tribe. Then we got 3 people, including Mark from the Beauty Tribe. And then the swing vote is one of my good friends in real life. So like it was not Mark's fault that he got voted out there. And then also we were really bad at challenges, that tribe. Like we had we lost 3 challenges in a row. We voted out
Chad, Ayla.
Yes, I was gonna say Chris. It was Chad, and then it was Mark, and then Ayla. Chris, put your earmuffs on. I was actually pushing for Ayla to go before Mark because I thought
I heard about that too.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, you were there, so like you knew that
Chris
I was
knows
pushing for
everything.
that. But that was also before I knew she was your sister. But anyway, Mark, if you were someone who I was like, I think I could work with this person because we had met each other, we had watched like Survivor before at like Stone Creek.
Yeah.
The bar in New York where we used to get together to watch Survivor. So I had sort of known you a little bit, and I was like, he sort of seems like a good social player that I'd want to work with. But then once we lost 3 in a row, we just like had to get rid of all you guys. It was just a numbers thing. It wasn't your fault.
Yeah, that sucked. Yeah, it was hard to do anything. I like went up to Emily and I was like, I have the idol for your tribe.
Yeah,
like you can have it. But I didn't realize everyone, like, you guys knew each other, so I didn't know that was going to happen.
If you guys had gotten a different swing vote, it could have been, who knows? It depends on the person. It could have been a different story.
But I will say
The other
that
person would have been Forstenhausler.
one of the most interesting things about that was that the bags for your tribe in one of the challenges for Survivor Brooklyn South would not open. There was a mistake in the mechanics in that challenge for your tribe, not for the other tribe, just for your tribe. And my sister pulled me aside and was like, Chris, you need to do something about this. This is not fair. This is not right. Like, you physically couldn't. I couldn't even pull it apart.
I know. I was in the background trying to rip it open.
And like, I give it to George, and George couldn't even do it. And he's like, I can't do this. I can't go back on. I already said they won. I'm gonna stick to it. And I mean, it's one of those tough calls as a host. You have to make a decision. And his reasoning was fair. It was like, do anything you could to rip it apart. You could have like went up to a stranger on the side and asked for a pair of scissors or something like, and that effect. So there was a lot of things, I think, going against you in that moment for that game.
I would say, to our credit as a tribe, we maintained civility. We didn't protest. We didn't start saying, stop the vote. We were very mature.
Well, and I think another thing is that, like, something I love about Mark is that, like I was saying, Mark, you and I were so closely aligned in Buffalo, but I know you were probably going to vote me out, and I was never going to vote you out. And I think that's because you were my close ally, and I cared about you. I wanted to go to the end with you.
No, I thought about it just because, you're a good player, but I don't think I would have done it. There was just no,
we had too many lunatics on our side.
All right, so let's ask some like parting questions here. Like, one question that just came to my mind, Mark, was, of all your live reality games, who do you view as your best ally? And you don't have to say Naomi just because she's there.
But we were great. No, it's fine.
I would have to say Naomi because we actually like talked about every single thing that could happen and like how we can get ourselves to the end. So it was really good to have someone strategic to work with. Sometimes more in orgs, I'm with people who either are not good like at challenges and I like, even in live games, I go to tribal councils in all my live games. Like, it doesn't matter. I go to like every single tribal council. So that's where I have to use my social game. So it was just refreshing to win some challenges and be able to like strategize when it came to merge.
Yeah. One of my favorite things was that when I went out in Survivor Buffalo, I was basically coaching you to win immunity. Like, I was like a dance mom, like being like, lift your arms higher. Like, because I was like, Mark is going to fucking win this if this is the last thing that I do. And it was the last thing that I did.
That was the worst.
And cold. So cold. I think the other question we have, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, is, would you play Survivor New York again?
Oh yeah. I mean, coming that close to winning, you really want to try to do it again. The only thing is, as Chris said, I have a reputation of, being social and getting to the end. So I would be
scared. Coming and be like a real asshole from the first vote and just
I know. Yeah.
Lose your threat level then.
Yeah, exactly. You can just be like a total jerk.
I don't think you can do that, honestly.
I don't think so either. But
I think it'll be interesting because, like, if you returned on like say it was like just a few returnees, I mean, your threat level is huge. If
Yeah.
it's like fans versus favorites, it's a little bit minimized. But if it's a full returnee season, I mean, it really depends on who else is there. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you're a threat. Yeah, you got to the final four, but if everyone that's playing made it to the top 6, I mean,
That's
then
true.
it's kind of like equal ground, I would say.
Yeah. I would
Yeah,
enjoy that.
On that.
Well, I
Um,
assume if we ever had a returners player season, like the people to choose from, right, from top 4 eliminators were like Forstenhauser and Matt Eichel, and then the person who went out 4th in our season. And I think any of those 3 are in season 4, I should say. Any of those 3 are likely to return as well as Mark. So hopefully the threat level is a little smaller, but
yeah, I would hope so.
some
And I think
icons.
this round, I think I would have more fun. I think I was too, into winning. I like really wanted to win, and I kind of played not as best as I could, just because I was just trying to like get to the end and win. When I could have had more fun and made stronger bonds.
Awesome. Chris, anything else? Jordan, anything else?
I think I asked everything I wanted to ask about the game. Didn't think we were going to get so much into Brooklyn South, but that was fun. No, I think I'm good.
Mark, the last question is, what was your favorite memory, like, or maybe your favorite moment that you saw in the episodes that you had no idea about? If you have one.
I think for me, the favorite memory is me and Sarah winning immunity at the same time, because it's like we reunite, like she's on the chopping block. I'm like gonna have to try to save her because everyone wants her out. So to have that not happen was really fun. And we were just like, let's go into this and, take control right now. But it was fun to see people trying to get me out. I didn't, you don't see that. And I didn't know if anyone was doing that. So that was fun.
That's true.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many times you like kind of needed it to stay alive.
Yeah.
So
I really didn't think any of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, first of all, quick happy birthday to Charles. It's his birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Yay, happy birthday, Charles.
I missed many birthdays, but that was the one that happened today. So yeah, I'm gonna say it. So here's what I've done. I have created something because Emily Paddock DM'd us on Instagram and made me do this. Grandma. It's called Linktree. So you go to linktr.ee. Who knows what that means? /Survivor New York, and I have a link to everything, including our YouTube channel, our discussion group, our casting application, our season 3 fan favorite vote, our Facebook group, our Facebook page, our playlist with all of the podcasts like this, so you can listen to every single recap interview. Our Giphy, you can listen to this again. Our Giphy account and our Instagram account. So this club has everything. So make sure to go visit linktr.ee/Survivor New York. I don't even know how to pronounce this.
It's Linktree.
It's weird.
You've never seen that on TikTok? It's a Linktree on TikTok. Like you post like your OnlyFans and your Instagram all in one place.
Survivor New York OnlyFans coming soon.
Yeah, you can actually go to Naomi's OnlyFans from this.
Mark is the first participant on our OnlyFans. We would get like a million subscribers.
I am going to spam Anessa with Anessa gifts all the
time. My God, before we go, we have to talk about, Mark, how did you meet Meatball? Because Meatball, a famous drag queen, messaged us like who she wanted to see win. And I was totally gagged because I had met Meatball in New York City before, and I love her to death. So like, what happened with that? Did you guys like go on a date or something?
Oh no. I think I'm also a big fan of Meatball, and I just followed her on Instagram, and we just started talking. And there was this one time where I did like this parasite cleanse, and I like got really allergic to the stuff that I was taking. And like I posted this picture of me like bloated and like red rashes all over, and she just found it like the funniest thing she's ever seen. And after that, we just.
I think I remember you posting that picture.
I want to see the picture.
I will go find it and send it to you.
Well,
I just sent Anessa a gif of her talking to Sanchaya.
you got to do the count. The counting one is my favorite because it's so Anessa. It's just like 1, 2,
What are the numbers?
3.
That is one of the best.
And I
For
have many
sure.
more to make after this. Make sure to go to our YouTube channel, especially because we have a new video out, like I said, with every single voting confessional. I mean, every single voting confessional. So fun, so much fun to watch back. I think it gives great insight into everybody's thought process throughout the whole game. One of my favorite Sandy confessionals where she just goes, well, this sucks. And it's like, Sandy, we miss you so much. And more than anything, please connect with Live Reality Games on Facebook, facebook.com/Live Reality Games. This group grows and grows and grows out of the passion of the people who support these games, make these games, play these games. And they have been so supportive to Survivor New York this whole season. I'm going to be covering more games, so you can tune into me, or you can just never listen to my voice again. Jordan Kalish, thank you for being here so much. Mark, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching the season, Jordan, finally. And Mark, too.
It was great. I really enjoyed the whole thing. Like I said, it's been tough without having a new Survivor season as a very big fan of the show. So to have a fan made game to watch that I've also I know the lay of the land. Like I know where like everything in the backyard is. So it's cool to watch like from that perspective now, because season 2 I watched before I had gone out to season 4. So it was cool seeing that. And Mark, congratulations on a game well played, almost getting there and winning. And then I don't know if Gary's still in the chat. I knew that Gary was going to win. I didn't know how well he played, but I think he played a fantastic winning game as well. So congratulations to him. And then Sam and Nissa, the other members of the final 3 for getting there. It's not easy to do.
Thank you.
And
I'm really excited just to say that season 4 is on its way, and we have another Survivor to look forward to besides Survivor South Africa that's coming out in June. But yeah.
What? Okay.
I'm gonna get our buffs are on the way too, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
You'll get to meet the players pretty soon, which is awesome. So please stay tuned for more content. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is the Live Reality Games podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, I think, but mostly on YouTube. Okay, good night, everyone. And you guys don't need to leave.